Hey, how's it going, everybody? Brad the Guitarologist here. Welcome to part 2 of my drumming series. In my first part of the drumming series, we talked about the kit that I have so far, which is this. And we talked a little bit about my background in drumming, which is not that extensive. I've been playing for a long time, but just not well for a long time. So I'm going to be learning to drum. I'm going to be learning to tune drums. I'm going to be learning the fundamentals of stick control. I'm going to be doing all kinds of little exercises and just things to try to improve my own performance on a drum kit. I feel like I'm pretty decent at hand drums. I think I'm better at hand drums than I am a drum kit. I have a lot of hand drums around my place. There's another, well, it's not a hand drum, but you get the idea. You know, I've got stuff here and a little bit of here and everywhere that I've had for a long time, and I consider myself, you know, somewhat proficient at hand drums, probably more so than drum kit. But this series is going to be mostly about drum kit. So in this second part, one of the things that I was missing was a set of decent hi-hats. I've got a hi-hat stand, but I don't have a decent set of hi-hats. One thing that I learned while managing a music store, we dealt in a company called Stag. It's a European company, and you don't see them a lot in the US, but it's European Music Distributors. I think it's EMD is the parent company of Stag. But anyway, long story short, they're one of the largest musical distributors in Europe. But at the time that I managed that store, they were relatively new in the US. You didn't really see them a lot. But one of the things that they were really doing well was cymbals. Our music store was owned by a drummer, a consummate drummer, somebody who was he was a jazz drummer, and another guy who worked there was a great drummer as well. He was more of a rock drummer, but great drummers worked at this music store, and they knew their stuff and they knew what they were talking about. And when they said these cymbals are great, I believed them. And playing them myself and comparing them to Zildjian and Sabian and Paiste and all that stuff, you know, I agreed. Really well made cymbals, sounded great, and for the cost, they were absolutely a no-brainer. Now, the cost seems to have come up in the past 10 years since I managed that store, and that's simply because I think their reputation has sort of gotten out there now as great producers of cymbals. The reason I think that they are so great at cymbals is because somebody who came in and took the reins over of Stag, he actually once ran Sabian, so he knew a thing or two about cymbal making and probably knew a thing or two about where to get cymbals made and where to, you know, how to distribute them cheaply and all this kind of stuff. I'm sure he brought a lot of experience to the table there at Stag. But so I've ordered a set of Stag hi-hats, and we're gonna hear what a set of Stag hi-hats is going to sound like. But here's the problem. I got this from eBay. All right, here's the package that it was sent in. Look at this. This package that this eBay seller put this set of hi-hats in is basically just one piece of cardboard that's folded over onto itself and just taped up with really nothing protecting any of the corners. Look at this. It's busted out on the edges. So I don't know if I hold out high hopes for this hi-hat set being playable. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if, because this is, see how this is broken out, it looks like somebody probably threw this package, and so the momentum of those cymbals came out. Who knows what they hit, or if anything hit the concrete floor, who knows. But one thing is sure, they came out of there at some point and ripped through that tape and most likely hit something, and they could have hit things all along the other edges as well on their trip here. So we're going to open this up and cross our fingers and hope that it's that they're good. But man, what a way not to ship cymbals, right? Alright, so we'll get in here where there's a little bit more light, but you can see what I mean. Look, you can see the cymbals actually coming out on the edge there. It doesn't look like they're dented too badly, if at all. But like I said, I'm just crossing my fingers at this point, hoping I made it. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, go ahead and do so now down below, because if you like this type of video where I'm adding to my drum kit, I'm learning how to drum, I'm hopefully going to be improving at drums slowly over the course of time. And if you want to follow my progress and, you know, either build a drum set of your own or get tips on how to tune or things like this along the way, definitely subscribe so you can see all of that content. That's my intention, to make this into a longer form series. So, but yeah, these are Stag SH 14-inch medium hi-hats. Really, really good cymbals for the money. It's hard to beat Stag cymbals. Believe it or not, you know, I never would have had high expectations from a company called Stag. It's just really a stupid sounding name as far as I'm concerned. I never liked it either when I managed the music store and we dealt in Stag stuff. I always thought that was the dumbest thing about the company, was the name. If they would have had a better name, I don't know, something a little more catchy, maybe
full-blown AIDS
could have been better. But I do see one little dent right here on the keyhole. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it or not, but there is a dent there. It's not going to affect the sound really. I'm just wondering if it's going to make it more susceptible to cracking later. Probably not so much on a hi-hat. That's really more of a concern on cymbals, but, or you know, crash cymbals, ride cymbals. But these are really, really well made cymbals. The Stag stuff is usually hand hammered, made of really nice alloys. And yeah, for the money, dude, it's really hard to beat Stag stuff. You might call around, actually, see if there are any dealers in Stag cymbals that are close to you. Because if you're in the market for cymbals, it would behoove you to go into a dealer that deals in Stag stuff alongside of, you know, equivalent Zildjian and Sabian stuff, like we did when I managed a music store. That way you can hear them side by side and you can compare them yourself and you can see exactly what I'm saying. There's a reason these are good. Like I said, the guy who runs the company formerly ran Sabian, so when he came on board there, he revamped all of the cymbal stuff. Their drums have actually gotten a lot better too, I hear. When I was dealing in them, their drums were still just really beginner stuff, but I hear that their drum stuff, and just in general across the board, has gotten much, much better. So definitely worth looking into if you're looking for affordable but good drum stuff. So yeah, let's put these on a stand and just listen for a second and hear what they sound like. Okay, so this is going to be all the onboard microphone on this camera. The camera's a Canon, so the microphone is actually half decent on this, and I hope it picks up at least most of the overtones and everything of these cymbals. So this is the $9 clutch that I bought from Guitar Center the other day when I was in there. It's an SPL, like I said, I think it was $9. I think it was the cheapest one that they had, and I wasn't looking for anything really special. I was just looking for a regular clutch. My stepdad, growing up on his kit, he had a clutch that allowed you to release the hi-hats so that they would stay closed. And then when you pressed on the pedal, the clutch would come down and it had a little hook on it that would grab another piece of hardware, and then it would convert it instantly into an open hi-hat situation. So you could actually, with your stick, even mid-fly, you could change your hi-hat to constantly closed, so you didn't have to step on it. So if you were, for instance, if you were going to a double bass, you were doing double bass, but you wanted your hi-hat to be closed, you know, you could hit that little hook and it would drop the hi-hat down to a closed position, then you could move your leg off of the hi-hat stand if you wanted to and continue. But I didn't need all that, I didn't think so. At least not yet. Who knows, I might get good enough I feel like I need it, but not yet. Okay, one thing I could see that I don't like already is that they did not label these as top or bottom, but usually the one that's heavier is the one that goes on bottom, and that would be this guy. So if there's ever any question about which of the hi-hats is the bottom hat, it's usually the one that's a little bit heavier. So if you're not familiar with setting up a hi-hat or hi-hat stand, again, this is the clutch, and it goes on the top hi-hat, so it just remains attached. This bit right here, and again, some of this stuff I am not going to know about drums, but there are some things I do know about drums, so I'll be able to teach you a little bit, but you'll also be able to learn with me in the series. So we're going to take the hi-hat clutch and we're going to install it. So you put your felt one on one side, and then you'll have a felt on the other side right here. And then just take your nuts, install it here on the bottom. And it's not going to hurt for this to be nice and tight. Some people don't like it tight, but I've never minded it being good and tight on that. So it holds it. There's also a memory lock here, so you can set it, like if you like this to be a little bit looser on the clutch, you can make it that way. And you can make it so that the next time you put this clutch on here, it memorizes where you were just by setting this top little memory lock right here. You see how these two nuts come apart? So this one, when you set it into position, it locks this in so this one can't move, and it just gets everything real nice and tight also. So we're going to loosen this wing nut to give it clearance, and then we will just drop it down over the top here. Different people have different ways of setting up their hi-hats. They're underneath. Let me get you a little closer so you can see. Okay, if we look at here at the underside of the hi-hat, right here you'll see a little adjustment screw. Now what this adjustment, I'll turn it sideways so you can see it a little better. What this adjustment screw does is it actually cocks this bottom hi-hat slightly up at an angle, so that when your top hat falls down and meets it, it will be more likely to cause a little off-center gap. And the hi-hats will rattle against each other a little bit more. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to depress the pedal. So the pedal right down here, I'm going to push it down slightly, and when I do, this pole that's extending through the top is going to come down as well. So I'm going to grab it at a spot, and I'm going to push on the pedal right now, and you can see this moving up and down. I'm going to move it down slightly so that when I tighten this top hi-hat is going to pull up off of the bottom hi-hat. Now you're going to see there's a gap. You see there's a gap now on the hi-hats, but one side of the gap is wider than another side. So right here these two hi-hats are touching, but over here they're pretty far apart. But what that does is it makes it so I can dial in precisely the sound I want whenever the hi-hat is in an open position. So if I like the hi-hat, and again, there's really no wrong way to do anything like this, and most drummers would tell you the same thing, but everybody has a preference. But what I am going to do, I'm just going to use some sticks to kind of set this about where I want it to be. Now if I don't like those two hi-hats clashing against one another when it's in full open position like this, if if I don't like that, all I have to do is loosen this little nut right here and then press the pedal down a little bit further than I did before, and it will raise this hi-hat all the way up off of that one. So I can get more of a sound like that if I prefer that, but I don't personally prefer that. So I do kind of a lot of more rock stuff, I suppose, when I play, and I like to have the hi-hats clanging against one another when they're in an open position. Again, that's just a personal preference, but you can also adjust. That's what that screw on the bottom is for. You can adjust that angle so that you get a different angle on the bottom hi-hat, and they will clang at a different place if you want it to do that. You see how right there they're clanging, but I'm going to adjust this bottom screw so that that bottom hi-hat will lay flat, and now when I hit it, they're not clanging because I don't have the bottom hi-hat at an angle. But that's the beauty of this little adjustment screw on the bottom, and that's what a lot of new drummers will neglect, is this little adjustment on the bottom hi-hat that allows you to adjust the angle of that bottom hi-hat to get it the exact sound that you want. And that I do know. Now I think that's a bit far of a throw, so I'm going to set the hi-hat a little bit lower. So I'm going to depress the pedal slightly less. One more interesting feature of this hi-hat stand that I wanted to mention before I let you go is the fact that it has an adjustable tensioner for the chain. So if you see this little plastic ring right here, you'll notice that around that ring, or above it I suppose, in the metal right there, there are some grooves. And what you do is you turn this ring and you can bring this up and down. You see there's a middle channel here. So there's something on the ring that actually you can bring this up and then turn it, and you can fit it into any one of these grooves. And what that's going to do, it's going to raise, it's going to do two things actually. It will raise the pedal, so the pedal will set a little bit higher up. But it also will, because it's spring tensioned, it will increase the amount of tension. So right now, I'm going to adjust nothing except for this, and you'll see the hi-hats and how high it's setting. Right now, it's not touching anywhere. The top hi-hat is not touching the bottom hi-hat, so I'm not going to touch anything except for this adjustment. So if I take this adjustment and I just move it down, all the way, I'll let it drop all the way to the bottom. Now the hi-hats are fully touching, and when I press on the pedal, it doesn't do a whole lot. But if I want them to be just a little bit apart, like I prefer, I can bring it up one setting. And now they're touching, they're pretty close together. That's about how I like it. I might come up one more. But every time I come up and I go into a new groove, so from here I want to turn it, I want to come up a little bit and turn it the other way, because the next groove up is on the other side. So when I do that, you can see it's brought these further apart, so they're a little more free to rattle, but the pedal is still pretty easy to depress. So that's just something else I thought I would mention. I think that right there is about right for me. Over the years, like I said, there are a few things that I have picked up, a few tips and tricks, and this is one of them. Always buy if you're going to buy wooden sticks, always buy Shira Kashi Oak sticks. And the reason for this is these sticks will last about 20 times to 100 times longer than any other wood stick you're going to pick up. If you just go into Guitar Center and buy any other, maple stick that is sold, they're not going to last anywhere near as long as these sticks. Now, you'll pay more for these, but they are well worth it. These are also the sticks, just coincidentally, I think Neil Peart used Shira Kashi Oak sticks as well, and I think his signature sticks are also Promark, if I remember correctly. I think his have a slightly different profile, but generally they're kind of a take on the 5A, and I've always used 5A and I like 5A. So this is what I use in terms of sticks. The thing about these sticks too, and it's also called Japan Oak. So if you hear somebody referring to Shira Kashi Oak or Japan Oak, they're the same thing. So what's special about this particular type of wood is that when these sticks start to wear, they're going to dent, they're going to chip, they're going to do everything practically except crack. Cracking is about the last thing they will do. So they resist cracking in half like a lot of sticks will. A lot of times you'll hit a rim shot on accident and you'll get a stick that just cracks completely in half and it just shears right off. These very rarely will ever do that. Usually what ends up happening with these is they chip. If you do a lot of rim shots or missed hits or whatever, it will chip out the wood kind of around this area, and it will keep chipping and chipping and chipping until it finally gives up the ghost, or you finally replace them just because they're not, the profile's wrong. But very rarely will they just shear off the way that a lot of other sticks will. So yeah, there's tip number 1. Look into Stag Cymbals, and there's tip number 2. Always try to buy Shira Kashi Oak or Japan Oak made sticks. So yeah, that will do it for this second video in our series on drumming. Like I said, I am not an expert drummer. I am not even a good drummer. I never took any lessons for rudiments. So everything that you learn here on this series is you're going to be learning a lot of it along with me. And I'm also going to be reiterating a lot of things and renewing some knowledge that I already knew and probably forgot. So if that's the kind of thing that interests you, hit subscribe, and yeah, we will see y'all next time.